Alright, Zach, it's time to do a new Judge Mathas, but I want to do something strange, something weird this time.
Yeah, alright, let's do Deadly Premonition.
Deadly Premonition by Rising Star Games, a game so notorious or infamous for being so bad it's good. Many years ago, actually, I used to do a stream called Terrible Game Thursdays, where I would play terrible games on Twitch for the amusement of myself and those watching. One of those games ended up being Deadly Premonition, but I played it for more than 1 week. There was something charming about it, something fascinating about this game and its bizarre story, its shoehorned in combat, and everything else that was so wrong, it was oh so right. But I never did finish it. The PC port on Steam is so god-awful that it crashes at the most random times, even with the DP fix from the community, which does fix a lot of the issues, but not enough for it to actually work properly. But I always knew I wanted to go back and play it, and Judge Mathas is that excuse to go back and check out weird games. So, let's take a look at Deadly Premonition. Okie dokie. The game is barely started and I'm immediately greeted with a bloody murder scene, a snake slithering between some expertly covered nips, and Grandpa Farmer being mildly surprised by the whole thing, while two kids who seem incredibly okay with it all stare in awe. Come on, Grandpa, get those kids out of here! Seriously, two kids are standing there in awe at a dead body and your reaction isn't to immediately get them away, but to also awkwardly stand there and give a mild gasp. Bad grandparenting, Grandpa, you're fired. All right, well, the scene is laid, a murder has been committed, and now we must get to the bottom of it. Let's get to playing. Exactly, York. Exactly. Wait, aren't those the same two boys who were at the murder scene, except they're now dressed up as angels? What is this room? Mannequins? Fire stove? A TV? Red leaves? Well, actually, that's not that weird when you think about it. Creepy children? What's going on? This isn't normal. Well, alright, Deadly Premonition isn't exactly a normal game. Especially in the beginning, things seem random and disjointed and kind of without purpose. Nothing makes sense and it's all really surreal. Some of it succeeds in being creepy and mysterious, while other aspects...
Could you wait just a little longer?
Can be awkward. But once the creepy twins tell us it's time to get started, we cut to our main character driving in a rainstorm toward the town where the murder took place. His name? Francis York Morgan, but everyone calls him York. Trust me. We catch York chatting away about his previous case in the city, the new case he's going on to, and some old Tom and Jerry cartoons. Oh, what? What do you mean, who's he talking to? He's talking to Zach, of course. His invisible friend that may or may not exist, but York definitely believes exists, and he talks to him constantly. He takes advice from him, he runs theories by him, and he makes terrible jokes to him. With the town not too far away, York... Oh, God! Wait a minute. Rewind that? I know the assumption here is that this axe-wielding maniac appeared out of nowhere, and we swerved out of the way to avoid a head-on collision. But is that a guardrail directly behind the Axeman? Was York too busy trying to light a cigarette that he was headed for a straight-on collision with the guardrail and possibly crashing through it into an unknowable canyon into certain doom? Was Axe-wielding Maniac just trying to stop us from crashing through the guardrail? Axeman was the guardian all along. Smoking kills, everyone. Wait. Look, I know, I want to get to the game too, but did those two chipmunks just make monkey noises? Seriously? You know what? Never mind. Just continue. York emerges from the wreck unharmed and lights a cigarette in true badass form and walks away with a quippy one-liner.
Zach, there goes the civilized world.
It's here we learn that York will be continually torn between the real world and some alternate dimension hellscape filled to the brim with ring girl cosplayers attempting to murder him. And what does York do when he is faced with this new reality? Nothing. He continues on his way, completely accepting that this is how things are now. He then must make his way through some twitchy, back-bending zombie creatures in the middle of the woods, all while the raincoat, axe-wielding maniac attempts to stop his progress into the town by destroying a random machine while leaving the actual fuses intact to be used on the useful machine that actually opens up the locked door leading into town in true mustache-twirling villain style. And this right here is the primary gameplay loop. Fight generic twitchy zombies, go from one point to the next collecting necessary items and clues, and end the whole sequence with a profiling where York puts together some clues in his mind and talks out a sequence of events to push the story along and cement to us that he's a genius FBI profiler. It's also easily the weakest aspect of the game. Combat is terrible. While aiming, you can't move, which normally would be fine if the cursor didn't feel floaty and inaccurate. The zombies pose almost no threat as you can walk away from them faster than they can approach you, and each segment plays out exactly the same. Go through hellish pocket dimension, shoot zombies, find clues or items, and flash back to the real world where the fun adventure bits are. And I was playing on the director's cut version of the game, where the controls were apparently improved. As in the original version, it had tank controls, i.e. the original Resident Evil. Oh, just thinking about it is giving me the sweats. Each time I was put into Zombieland, I rolled my eyes and braced for the game to pad its experience. Apparently in development, the combat was added dead last because it was feared the game wouldn't sell well out in the West without some form of combat injected. So, this is what we get. Oh, and my favorite part of combat?
Great. Bullseye. Amazing. Bullseye.
After running up the road a bit, we're quickly introduced to Emily Wyatt, the deputy sheriff, with some softcore porno music, of course, and then shortly after, we're introduced to George Woodman, the actual sheriff of the town, and #1 mustache man in the land. Seriously, that thing is majestic. They'll be tagging along during the game as we investigate who the killer is. I've got my eye on you though, Emily. You're a suspect. You're all suspects, you hear me? I'm a big-time FBI man from the city, and I don't take no shit. I will find out who killed the girl, and until I do, I'm watching you. We give them both the same spiel about wanting to be called York and flash our fancy badge before we head into town to begin our investigation.
York!
Yeah, no. After learning a little bit about the town from Polly, the owner of the hotel we're staying at, and possibly the woman with the worst back posture of all time, until she sits down, we head into town and start cracking down on this murder. We're introduced to a very colorful cast of characters, including, but not limited to, Fiona Freckles, the nurse of the hospital, and unsurprisingly, has freckles. Usha, the doctor on the case, whose name I'm not entirely sure is racist or not. And this guy, Harry Stewart, skull gas mask with metal things in his neck, very Frankenstein, who only talks to his assistant in rhymes and cryptic messages about some vague future. Because of course he does. Alright, so we're in the hospital. The body of the woman who was killed at the beginning of the game is here, and we're gonna check out the body for clues. Now, of course, everybody here is gonna start figuring it out for themselves. They're gonna start putting clues together in their mind, but we're FBI professionals, and we're better than them. So we quickly dismiss them as idiots and figure out how the girl was murdered, when she was murdered, and possibly the motivations of the murderer, all through clues on the body itself. So after figuring out all these clues, you do what most FBI agents do. You ask if George is a passionate lover with women. And then go for a nice dig in her mouth. Yeah. Just get that finger deep in there, York. Yeah, yep. You're really going to town, aren't you? Why are you doing that? Why are you even doing that? York, where did this come from? Oh, sweet. Red seeds. Good find. These red seeds directly connect with a case from his past and now gives our titular hero a direct and personal motivation to figure out who the killer is. But first... This shit is long! And who is this killer? Well, after a whole lot of exposition, we learn about the folklore of the Raincoat Killer, a person who shows up and kills people during rainstorms, which I guess would explain why we saw that axe-wielding maniac on the highway on our way into town, which, you know, honestly, if he's murdering people, why is he on the highway outside of town? Did he know I was coming? Why didn't he just kill me in the woods instead of taking fuse boxes? And really, that didn't stop me. I mean, realistically, I could have climbed the fence and whatever. The whole town is so convinced of this person's existence that during any rain, everything in town shuts down. Stores, schools, people don't go outside. So, of course, York holds a press conference with the town. Because, of course he does, and lets everyone know to stay inside during the rain and to stay safe. How hard could that be anyway? Most people do that in this town already. If anything, they should be fine. Shit. Raincoat Killer is pretty effective for only being able to murder in the rain. The mystery surrounding the Raincoat Killer is so surprisingly enticing. Honestly, for all the game's faults, and there are a lot of them, the story at the heart of it all, a murder in a small town, limited number of suspects, ties to an old case and an FBI agent out of his element, supernatural twists, it's all actually really well done. Deadly Premonition is already notorious for being so bad it's good. So I expected the terrible voice acting and bad shooting combat bits. What I didn't expect? Smart writing and storytelling with a world worth exploring. Seriously, I know it's hard to go into detail without spoiling anything, but if you have any intention of playing this game, avoid reading up on spoilers. There are clues to who the killer is and what's actually going on, and clues to who Zach may or may not be in front of you at all times. You only have to look in the right places to find them. It reminds me of Silent Hill 2 in the beginning of that game, almost spoiling the story for the player who knows what to listen for. Deadly Premonition takes plenty of unexpected twists and turns to keep you guessing, and the constant looming supernatural aspect had me constantly curious if the killer was any person in town, or maybe something supernatural and different entirely. And if you take a break from chasing down the narrative and explore the town, you'll quickly discover that this town actually kind of feels alive. People go about their daily lives, some go to work, others take lunch breaks, and you can have some fun and interesting encounters with the town folks, who all have great character built into them, despite some of the really ludicrous names. It's obvious the love and focus on this game was in the story and the bizarre as hell characters, and I think the game would have been better off as an adventure horror game. It's a shame that combat was shoved down the throat of what is otherwise a strange and kinda awesome cult hit. It's a testament to the developers that despite obvious budgetary constraints and forced gameplay mechanics, that this game is still something I thoroughly enjoyed. It's, dare I say, pretty good? It's weird because I can't help but compare looking at Deadly Premonition in contrast to Ninja Blade, another game that I deem so bad it's good, but the combat mechanics in Ninja Blade are the focal point. It's the reason you play. You don't play because of the story. Deadly Premonition is the absolute opposite of that, and rises to the occasion much like Ninja Blade did for me. It's interesting, and the twists and the turns are all really gripping, and the end is... it's just as bizarre as the rest of the game, and playing through it a second time if you so choose to do so is really eye-opening to show the subtle clues thrown throughout the game to point you in the right direction if only you knew what you were looking for. I can't help but recommend it for those who enjoy a Twin Peaks-esque type story in their video game, but play the console version and the director's cut at that. Ignore the Steam version and ignore the original release. It's just not worth your time. So I, the Honorable Judge Mathas, judge this game as guilty. It knows what it did. It knows that it shoehorned combat in to appeal to a broader audience. It knows that its budget didn't really allow for a smooth combat experience, but it did it anyway. But despite that, it was still worth playing. So, I highly recommend you guys go and check out Deadly Premonition. You know, I'd love to see a sequel to Deadly Premonition. It's one of those games that has always been talked about having a sequel and maybe not directly connected to the first game, but still a story worth telling, but it never got one. Is there a game you guys have played that never got the sequel you believed it deserved? Tell me why and what game that is in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh hey, still here, huh? Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Judge Mathas. If you want more Judge Mathas, you can check out the last episode where I take a look at System Shock 2, a classic of the PC gaming era of the late 90s. Or if you just want more of me talking because you love my voice so much, you can head over to youtube.com/MathasGames where I upload daily gameplay videos. And if you want more reviews that are not by me, youtube.com/DeanCuddy for some retro comedy reviews of the Sega Genesis kind. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Danger.